This video is about owning your experience. Now, I'm going to give you an extremely comprehensive video on this. I wouldn't necessarily use all of this when you're introducing it to a group for an evening, but you can use as much or as little as you like. So now when I talk about owning your experience, what it means to me is taking responsibility for my life, for my feelings, for my actions, for my reactions, for my thoughts. And I've spent a lot of time looking at what it isn't, like all the ways that we don't own our experience, right? And I've spent a time now looking at all the ways in which we do. And so let's start with what it isn't, right? So owning our experience, there's all these wonderful creative ways that people don't own their experience. For example, youification. Youification is when people use the word you instead of the word I. And this happens all the time. And often it does a couple of things. So one of the impacts that it can have is it creates distance between the person and the thing that they're talking about. It's like, oh, that thing over there. There's another way that it can, when I do exercises where we explore this, people report feeling like pressured to either agree with what the person is saying wholesale or kind of reject them and then as a result feeling fear around that because like if I reject that, I'm afraid I'm going to reject you as a person, even if that's not where I'm at. So, youification. So, for example, you know when you're in the movies and someone's eating popcorn really loudly in front of you and you just want to kill them? It's like, whoa, like maybe that's not my experience, right? Versus when I'm in a movie theater and people are I have this thing where like when people are chewing really loudly, it drives me nuts and I like feel like violent, right? So there's like this example of like, whoa, that's not me, but like, right? So there's this sense of there's more room when we speak from a place of I, there's more room for like a space for my experience as the listener, space for curiosity, and there's like a way that I can get to feel closer to you when you're bringing your experience closer to yourself. The next one is pretty straightforward blame, right? It's like, you made me angry, right? Which I'm essentially saying, when you did that thing, I had no choice but to feel angry. You forced that emotion into my system, right? And so, again, turning that around, gosh, when you did that, I felt this anger rise up in me, right? Or like, God, I'm feeling angry right now, and I'm connecting it to like your behavior, and I know it's mine, right? So blame. Shaming, which is like subtly suggesting that someone is bad or wrong at some fundamental level. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. So one of the ones that I find is the sneakiest, like it's the most confusing. People are like, why do I feel distant, confused, like what's happening? Is what I call deifying language. The colloquial term I use for this is, let me tell you how it is, Sonny. I'll do like one of these, like, oh, and this is the one where instead of sharing my experience, I abstract out into telling you the way that the world is, or I go to some like framework of philosophy that's actually divorced from my experience. It's not bad, like none of these not owning experiences are bad, right? But they're in connection and relational work. It's really valuable to be able to understand these distinctions, right? Because if I'm trying to relate to you as a person in a relationship, and you go to this place of abstract, like sort of telling me how the world is or getting into some philosophical concept, I might miss the thing that's actually about you that you really want me to get. So it's so valuable to be like, wait, what's your experience? Right? So the classic example I love to give for like, let me tell you how it is, Sonny, is life is tough and people are out to get you. So you want to get through in this world? You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to protect your ass. Because there's two kinds of people in this world. There's suckers and they're assholes. And you better not be a sucker if you want to make it, right? This world is dangerous. People really are out to get you, right? So take a moment, feel in your system. How close do you feel to me in this moment as I just shared that with you? How much room is there for your own curiosity and sense of connection? So I could turn it into ownership language, right? I could say, like, it's my experience that the world's dangerous and I see the world with only two kinds of people. But if I really want to drop down into my experience such that I'm owning it, not just like verbally, but energetically and emotionally, then I might say something more like, I feel angry and bitter about the world. And I've tried putting my trust out. It hasn't worked. And I've been taken advantage of, and I felt dumped. I don't want to anymore. So take a moment. Notice how much connection, how much space for curiosity you feel available with me in this moment. So that's, let me tell you how it is, Sunny. The next one I find is the most violent in many ways, the most damaging. And I call this labeling or boxing. This is when I tell someone, or you tell someone, who they are, how they are, what kind of person they are, what their motivations are, and what they're capable of. For example, you're just one of those, you're just kind of a weak person. Like, it seems like you just can't handle any difficulty, you just fall apart, right? Or, you just don't have much self. Sense of self is sort of not there for you. Or you're a victim, or you want to hurt me, I can tell. Or you want to control everybody in this room, I can tell, right? It's like, I'm the authority on your inner world. That's what labeling is, right? It also goes in the positive. You're the pretty one. You're the smart one, right? Because what I've noticed is that people shrink or expand to fit the boxes that those around them offer them. And it's like a really natural thing. Like I know for myself that I have a natural inclination to fulfill the expectations of those around me. And my experience is that this is pretty universal. And so, this is something that is a really important practice, is like, okay, like with the positive, like, you're the smart one. It's like going specific. It's like when you articulated your experience to her in that moment, I felt so endeared to you. Like, I looked up to you because I loved the articulateness that I heard in what you shared. I really felt connected to that, right? So there's this a way that it's like, oh, can I make it about me? That actually makes a compliment in this case easier to hear. Boxing and labeling, putting people in a box about what their motivations are. Those are some of the creative ways. Actually, let me add one, which is unsolicited advice, right? Oh my God, I've got this book for you, or let me teach you about this system that'll help you with your problem, or what if you just were to feel your feelings more and stop blaming yourself and just do that, right? These, at least in the context of circling, these kind of unsolicited advices can be invasive or unwelcome. And so instead it's like, where's your motivation here, right? Can you find the motivation? And then it's like, oh, I'm really wanting to help you somehow. It's like, oh, why? Oh, I feel really connected. I care about you. Or, God, you're like seem really in touch with your fear right now. And I don't want to be close to my own fear. And in order to be close to you right now, I would have to be close to that. And I'm resisting that, right? So, like, here are these examples, right, of like the ways that we can come back. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can really practice owning your experience. So there's a few like general principles. One, speak from the place of I. Talk more about yourself than you talk about other people, right? So there's a lot of narrative in the world today about speaking my truth, right? And my assertion is that your truth, my truth, it's never about anybody else. Never. It's always about my experience, my feelings, right? So if I really want to go there, let's say things are getting heated, I'm like triggered, I'm annoyed, I'm upset, whatever. Things are spicy for me. It's like, okay, can I speak from the place of I? One of the things that I find really easy, much easier to do, is to speak at the level of sensation. God, I feel my throat feels tense, my fists want to clench, and I feel this like dropping sensation in my stomach, right? These are things that fall in the category of inarguable, right? No one's going to debate this with you. And so, especially when things get challenging in connection around owning your experience, like, can you say things that are inarguable? Talking about sensation is a really easy in. Another way, especially if someone's particularly triggering for you, is you can ask questions like, who do I have them being? Am I transferring my feelings about someone else onto this person? My suggestion to you is that if you're really activated by someone, it's coming from somewhere in your past, either inside you or in a relationship with someone else, right? So who do I have them being? There's another one, Percept. There's a video about this later called, and this is the question that comes up. It's like, what part of me do I have them being? Can you find it, right? And then speak from that place. The last piece that I find really valuable is tracking. It's like, where did I learn to feel this way about that kind of behavior or about that energy, right? Can I find it, not necessarily to bring it or go into the past or tell some story, but to actually own it inside, right? To like let yourself know, like, oh, this is mine. This is because of the life that I've lived, you know? So how do you know, like, what are some anchors for this? So I'm going to give you two. One is what I'm saying inarguable, or is it my opinion? The other is, what's my motivation, right? When I'm in speaking this, do I want some specific outcome? Do I want you to see me in a certain way, feel about me a certain way? Do I want to control the situation somehow? Or do I want to know and be known, right? Do I want to express what's really here? So I'll leave you with that.